Hello, Frizzle friends. Bone Dance is a strange book that is hard to pitch. When it was first published in 1991, it was pitched as fantasy for technophiles. So you can see from the very beginning that people have been struggling to find this book its target audience. It's kind of fantasy, it's kind of sci-fi, it's a whole lot of weird. How would I pitch this with our genre labels of today? I would say it's a post-apocalyptic voodoo cyberpunk novel. It's decidedly speculative, but it's a little hard to nail it down past that. It takes place in a post-apocalyptic setting, there's lots of voodoo magic, but also it has the feel and the vibes of cyberpunk. A particularly useful tool in pitching this book is the reader personality test that I designed called Booktone. And this book is decidedly jade green, which is an emotional and character atmosphere book. So what does that mean? This book is decidedly emotional because you can't really logic your way through it very well. This isn't a book that's concerned with the plot always making sense. This isn't a book that is trying to help you solve the mystery well. This is a book that thrives on the emotions of our character. It's very character driven. And the atmosphere of this world, where our main character is obsessed with technology, but a lot of that technology is selling black market VHS tapes. But in parallel to that, there's tarot card readings and mysticism and voodoo gods. The vibes are strong. The character work is strong. The plot is confusing and disjointed. But I love this book, and I want it to find its audience. It's not going to be for everyone. In fact, the first time I read it, which is a story I'll tell a little bit later, it wasn't really for me. But here on a reread, oh my goodness, I gave this book 5 stars. I loved every second of it. I gobbled it up. This book is so poetic and punky and readable, and I want to read you a little bit from this book in order to give you a sense of that. And then we'll get into what this book is really about, I promise. Happiness, in the land of deals, is measured on a sliding scale. What makes you happy? A long, white, silent car with smoked glass windows, with a chauffeur and a stocked bar and 2 beautiful objects of desire in the back seat. An apartment in a nice part of town, a kinder lover, a place to stand that's out of the wind, a brief cessation of pain. It depends on what you have at the moment I ask that question and what you don't have. Wait a little, just a little. The scale will slide again. The beauty of the night fair was that no matter how one defined happiness at a given moment, it was usually available there. The price was negotiable, within limits. That's why the night fair endured, because we never stopped needing something to make us happy. I traveled the fence line to the nearest of the 3 gates and found it open. The night fair was alive from sunset to full dawn. At any other time, it was locked and silent, and no one climbed the fence. "What is that?" she'd ask, and, "A market," I told her. And the ocean is a large body of water, and the heart pumps blood. The subtleties are lost. So, from everything that I've said about the book so far, you have a decision to make. Because this is a book that wants you to go in blind and be confused. The premise of this book is complicated, and it does not give it to you on a silver platter. It's going to take you literally into about halfway into the book to finally understand what's going on. And it's probably not until about 80% that you really understand what's going on. If you like books that just throw you in there and expect you to put it together by yourself, go into this book like that. I really enjoy those kind of experiences, and this book gives it to you. This book, in order to understand the plot, demands attention and patience and brain power. And it gets weird. So option 1 is to turn off this video now and go read the book. Option 2, if you're not the type of person who enjoys being really confused in a book, I'm gonna tell you the setup and the premise. Just the basic backstory and tools I think you'll need in order to better enjoy this book. Many decades before the beginning of this book, there was a group called the Horsemen. The Horsemen are body snatchers. They may have started out normal humans, but they've lost their regular bodies long ago and they just possess other people. The US government thought that this was fantastic and hired them to go do special op things in South America with the banana republics there and stuff. And this was very effective for a little bit. And then they started going off the rails when the Horsemen started going off the rails, started getting more crazy and reckless and losing all of their morals. Eventually, this snowballed into some of them kicking off a nuclear war that sends the world into the post-apocalyptic state that our book takes place in. Most of the Horsemen were hunted down and eradicated in the aftermath of this nuclear war because people were understandably upset. But some of them are still around, and some of them play a part in this story. However, shortly before that nuclear apocalypse, the US government did realize that they needed to do something about these horsemen or things were going to spiral out of control. So what they decided to do was make custom bodies for the horsemen. So the horsemen could have something that was their own, that they didn't need to always steal a body from someone else. So they made these lab-grown humans that they called the chevaux, which is horse in French for the horsemen to ride. However, these chevaux never got a chance to be deployed before the whole apocalypse thing. Our main character, Sparrow, is one of those chevaux who, like a decade later, independently gained consciousness. Now, Sparrow is selling black market VHS tapes in a post-apocalyptic Minneapolis. Also in the society that the book takes place in, a lot of people have turned to old mysticism gods, especially the voodoo gods and practices, which plays a big role in the story. And that is all just the setup for this book that will help you be a little less confused when things start going down. So now I want to tell you a story about the first time that I read this book. I was 15 and I enjoyed the book, but I didn't appreciate it like I do now. It was too weird for me on a lot of different levels, and it was too heavy for me. It was such a strange mix of fantasy and sci-fi. It was not giving me the plot easily, and I was just kind of overwhelmed by it all. There's all these vague prophecies that pop up in these books and I didn't know how seriously to take them or if I had to pay attention to that or not. There's all these little details here that just come and go. All these new and confusing concepts, and I just got kind of bogged down in the weeds. So from someone who read this book as a teenager and then as an adult, I can say that this book is definitely not YA. If you're a teenager and you want to read it, go for it, man. I fully believe in spreading adult literature around, but some of the marketing for this book markets it as YA, and I just completely disagree with that. It is utter foolishness to think that a teenager would like this more than an adult. And one of the reasons for that is this book deals very seriously with themes of bodily autonomy. There's a sexual assault in this book. It's not on page, it's not graphic, but it's certainly a fact that it happened, and that fact plays a big part in the emotions and the development of our character Sparrow. One of Sparrow's character traits from the very beginning is that they don't like to be touched at any time by anyone. So anytime that Sparrow was even touched in this book, I was cringing along with them because I knew how much this hurts the character. And then when that's escalated to assault, I feel it down to my bones how much this would wreck this particular person. And that's a big moment in Sparrow's emotional journey in this book. And I think one of the big pros of this book is that character arc, is that emotional journey. The Sparrow changes a lot. That at the beginning of the book, Sparrow is very apprehensive about friendships and doesn't want to make any human connections. Sparrow doesn't feel like they belong in the society because they weren't born into it. They didn't get a normal childhood. They don't process social interactions like everyone else seems to do. So this book is about Sparrow learning to make friends, deciding that friends are actually a good thing for them, and also deciding to take up social space and bodily space to claim their own body, even though it was some unusual circumstances that got them there. And we've got some awesome side characters in the mix to keep us going. But this book is not without its cons. It is definitely not plot-driven, it is unfocused and weird. And there are so many prophecies and hints about tarot in this book, and I don't think any of them are really explained satisfactorily. I would advise, if you don't understand it, just ignore it. It's not going to be that important. So I love this book. The first time I read it, maybe 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but kind of too weird and confusing for me. Now that I'm going into it with a better understanding of the plot, and I feel like more life experience to help me process and compare this book to other things, I loved it so much. It's so good, and if this sounds like it's the book for you, I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching.